Right, thank you for joining us here in Lambeth or Brixton for this Lambeth School Patrol meeting about a stop and search incident that happened just outside in Stockwell Tube Station on the 27th of April 2002. We have a august panel. They will all introduce themselves again, save me doing it now, for you as they speak. But we're very much here to hold the local police commander and his police service to account about what we see as disproportionate stop and search and the profiling and targeting of young black children. So we'll explore that more with him. My name's Lee Jasper. This is Lambeth School Patrol. We're going to get straight into it. We'll hear from the panel. We'll take Q&As from the floor, and then we'll bring the meeting to a close. So starting with the family member who's going to introduce himself and speak here. Give him a warm round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hamza, as you just said, and I'm the cousin of the girl that was affected in this situation. First, I just want to thank everyone for turning up to this meeting this evening, and I believe it's very important that the police are held accountable for their actions, and what happened to my cousin should not happen to anyone else. Obviously, my cousin is a very good girl. She's obviously right now in year 11, and she's concentrating on her exams. And obviously, as a young child on a sunny day, teenagers tend to mess about, and this was what happened in this situation. Kids are messing about, and nothing less and nothing more. My concern is that the children are being detained, arrested, and sometimes even criminalized for matters that should either be dealt with residents and by the parents, and not by the police. My cousin is 16 years old. She's very small, and on the day of question on 27th of April, she was arrested just across the road by PC Barner on suspicion of burglary. He claimed that she had a key that was left in the local iron shutters of a shop. My cousin told him that she didn't have a key, and then after that, he placed her in handcuffs. He was surrounded by anxious school children who had desperately tried to tell the officer that he had made a mistake. After putting the handcuffs on my cousin, she was manhandled and by twisting the cuffs and causing her significant bruising on her arms and as well as her wrists. PC Barner called for backup and bundled her into the shop. And after this, over 14 police vans and cars attended, and what looked like close to 60 police officers. We live here in Stockwell, so both her mother and her older brothers were at the scene very quickly. They pointed out that she was 16 and that they asked to be let in to witness what was happening inside the shop. The police refused them. They refused point blank. After a while, it became clear that the officer had made a mistake, and she was released. And once she was free, she asked PC Barner and the other police officers for an apology. She was told that there will be no apology for what happened. After this, we contacted the school seeking answers as well as explanations to what happened. And clearly, they were very unhelpful and unsympathetic to the trauma caused to my cousin, as well as the anger of the local community in this incident. My cousin obviously is anxious and upset and ashamed that she was publicly accused of being a burglar at this time, especially when she should be concentrating on her exams. In fact, she had her biology exam today, as many other year 11s had their exams today, and obviously this is something that she should be thinking about, but clearly this is outside of her control. The family also asked to speak to and met with the head of year of the school to ask what actions will be taken by the school. They were told that there is a limit to what the school can do. And this, again, obviously upset them as well. My cousin is innocent and should not have been traumatized by such unnecessary and aggressive policing. The incident has caused a huge concern in the community, especially considering what happened to Child Q in Hackney some weeks ago. Some of you may know what happened, and some of you may not know. I suggest you look it up because it's quite obviously a traumatizing thing to talk about, and I don't want to talk about it today. And a lot of parents are concerned about what the correct procedures are for arresting children, either in or outside of school. We all know that black communities, especially young children, and young people have very little trust in the police, and this means that such incidents should be handled appropriately and with care in mind. Today, I was shocked to find out that Lambeth Police are the least trusted borough police force in London, and they have the highest rate of child arrests. When public trust is so low, when public trust is this low, people need reassurance that our children and our family members are being treated fairly by the police. So when a child in school uniform is being arrested, there'll be understandably a lot of public concern that young black children are being treated fairly with respect by the police. As a family, when we were told what happened made no sense. We need to see BC Bamber's body cam, and as well as some questions addressed to the commander that's here today. So we are glad that he agreed to meet with us and to explain what happened today. We will be making a formal complaint as well as seeking legal advice in due course. That's why I'm calling for a Lambeth review, so the police can sit down with the community and agree a new set of guidelines that should be applied in cases such as this. But as a community, we need to be honest with ourselves. As Lee said earlier, there is a serious level of youth violence in our community, and we've all seen the horrendous videos on social media of children fighting and people being attacked. As parents and family members, I believe it's our responsibility as a community to do something, and that's why we're here today with Code 7, and asking people to volunteer to be trained as Lambeth School patrol volunteers. We can keep our children safe coming out of school and ensure that they avoid unnecessary contact with the police. And when public trust in police is this low, we need to step up as family members and as parents. For my family, I would like a formal apology from the commander here tonight. We would like an investigation into this incident, as well as an agreement from him with what will happen in the future for the community, as well as to agree on new transparent guidelines for the arrest of children. I'd like to finish off by thanking the local MP, Flo, as well as Councillor Hashi, and as well as everyone else that's come here tonight in support of our family and us. I would also like to thank the community who have been very supportive of me and my family. And finally, I'd like to thank Code 7 as well as the Lambeth Police Patrol for the excellent work they do, as well as organising this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move swiftly on. I'm going to ask Chief Superintendent or Commander? Is it? And we promoted you by saying Commander, have we? Chief Superintendent, let's put him in his proper place. Chief Superintendent Wingrove, who will now give, how long have you been Borough here? 2 years he's been here. So let's hear from him about what happened on the day. Mr. Wingrove.
So good evening, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity for me to join you tonight. And I'm really proud to work in Lambeth, and listening really to the opening and actually some of the aims of tonight, for me, really important to listen. And I think there's real opportunities to work together to build bridges and to address some of the issues that have been raised around trust and confidence and the way that we police in Lambeth, because actually it's something for all of us to work together to do. And I think where we have communities that are willing to speak up, willing to give us feedback, willing to help and support, and as you mentioned around almost taking responsibility for some of the keeping our communities safe, all these things are actually really, really positive, and there's lots of really good examples about how that happens. And one of the things that I know strongly in my 2 years is there is a lot to do to build trust. It starts with listening, it starts with thinking about ways to do that, it starts with making sure that we are delivering a police service that you recognise and you work with and delivers the things in a way that you want us to. I am your servant, your public servant in charge of policing. My officers are your local officers. So the officer in question is a schools officer, spends most of his time doing educational inputs, working alongside the school, spends less of his time doing any of the other activities that schools officers do, very much trying to, I think as you described it really, around finding different ways to resolve things without going down a criminal justice path necessarily, working alongside the school. So that theme and ethos that you described is actually something that schools officers aim to do, and you find that most of them do a lot of pastoral type work and preventative type work to help and support young people in school so they can do the very best that they can. But obviously one of the things they do is they do school patrols, and Lambeth Council have a long-running school watch. So a number of schools take part in terms of patrols, schools officers outside the school gate, being reassuring, being friendly. The officer here in question has a school surgery where he talks to the students and teachers on a regular basis, for example, but is often seen outside the school gate. So most things are actually aren't, there's little, need to intervene, the vast majority of the time. But obviously as police officers, you also have to be able to respond to things that you see and to make sure that people are safe and people behave in the way that we want them to. And obviously in this instance, completely not, speaking to the parents beforehand and really, listening tonight and seeing some of the reaction, I completely understand how people are feeling. I completely acknowledge that, and you have my commitment, to really work and listen alongside the parents and others, to make some changes and to do some improvements. We're going to meet at a later stage to go in far more detail around the incident, and I'd really welcome that opportunity, I hope. And of course, everyone here, you could talk about making a complaint. Really important that where you feel unhappy with the service, that people do make complaints as well, so we can be held to account, because that's what we should do, because that's the way to build a service that responds to the things that you want us to do. So just turning back to the incident in question, the officer acted in what he believed was seeing that a shop was being broken into, potentially damaged by a group of children, and it intervened in that instant. And all officers are accountable for their own actions. So when an officer intervenes or uses force, they have to think about the law. They have to justify why they do that in all the different circumstances. So the officer has acted in that way. Will have recorded and has to justify what they did, because they wanted to prevent what they thought was a crime in action taking place, and to be able to respond to it. Part of what it was obviously that the action at the shutter door. So she wasn't arrested at the time. It was detained for the purpose of a search. So sometimes, and this is about knowing your rights, and I think knowing the law and knowing people's rights is again really, really important. And just briefly, there is an event, I think on the 30th of May, with the Lambeth Young Advisors, who have been doing some successful events to encourage young people to know more about the law. And we've attended those events, and like this, opportunities to question and so on. So look out for the Lambeth Young Advisors and the Stop and Search event, and I'll encourage anyone to go. But from the officer's point of view, and there's always different points of view, it has a body-worn video, and obviously we alluded to that as well, which records things as CCTV in the area also. But the use of the handcuffs was to prevent her from running away, going into the road, and detaining her for the purpose of search because of the missing keys. So, but you have to justify that, and I can see people shaking their heads, and I think one of the areas is about how we police and what police officers do, and how we learn how to make sure that we do things in the most appropriate way. The officer knew the shop owner, so knew that the shop, that the people there shouldn't have been doing what they were potentially doing, and again, it's just perceptions, isn't it, in terms of viewpoints and what different people are doing. But I think one of the things there, once it had been established what had happened, the incident itself was quickly de-escalated, in the sense that she wasn't arrested and taken to a station, handcuffs removed. I know parents, a mum attended as well, and tried to really sort of de-escalate what happened, rather than going to a police station, rather than arresting for an offence, and so on. And just responding to that change in information, returning the keys and property, so that that incident would end. There were different options which could have happened, which didn't, which I think is a positive thing. But again, there was quite a lot of detail around the incident itself, which I think I'd really welcome that opportunity, meeting with the parents, because I haven't been able to do that as yet, but I know that we will do, to really go through in detail about what happened, because I think you just need to hear and question there. But so what the officer saw were the shutters. There's a device that lifts and opens and closes the shutters to a shop, and the group of children there were opening and closing that shop, and thought, because he knew the owner and knew the shop was closed, thought that the children were trying to break into the shop, and so responded to that, and that's what they believed, and that's what they responded to. So, officers have to, if he sees that, a business may have something damaged, may have something broken into, obviously it's important for business owners to keep trading and so on in difficult times, and obviously, so from the officer's point of view, they many sort of dispersed and wouldn't stop to talk, so he wasn't able to have the opportunity to have a conversation at that time.
A group of students, why was that particular girl?
I think because she was seen with there's like a device at the bottom of the shutters that lift the shutters up and down, and he saw her there. So yeah. So as I say, I think there's something around obviously speaking to the parents and going through in detail the body-worn video, that scene and so on, which I think is really important to do. I think one of the other things that we certainly learned is that there was an arrangement made. I know that the officer in the school wanted to follow up with the parents, but the officer has been off duty, so that meeting hasn't taken place. And I think one of the things that I think we should have done better was that follow up with the parents much quicker, on the day or the day after. So. I haven't. No. Well, the officer's off duty, so.
I'm going to ask.
But I can't.
Sorry, I don't want to restrain you in any way, but the people online won't hear your questions because you haven't got a mic. When we do Q&As, I will pass the mic around for you to do that. So you just bear with me. I know there's a lot of questions that are arising for me as well. I suggest you make a note of them, and then when we get to Q&A, you can really begin to explore some of the issues. But you can see, Mr. Wingrove, the explanation is lacking credibility in terms of the way in which people understand these things. So you need to bear that in mind. But if you could just let him finish and make a point of all your notes, and then we can get to ask him some serious questions at that stage. Can I have your agreement for that? Is that okay? Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I think certainly one of the lessons that we learned is just around following up, and we certainly needed to do that. And I'm certainly sorry that we haven't been able to follow up much sooner, because I think in there we can then provide you a detailed explanation to parents, first and foremost, and just seek to resolve and understand and just learn from those incidents, which I think is really important. So, as I was saying, I think the key for us here is just obviously listening to the feedback, thinking about the ways that we police. So officers will respond in a different way to citizens on patrol. So officers have a duty to prevent crime, to maintain order, to keep people safe, and so on. Do that in a variety of different ways. And we always learn, so we never get things perfectly every single time. And we will always be a learning organisation trying to improve. And obviously the officer in this instance, felt they had reasonable grounds to act in the way they did to prevent crime. They have to, as I say, justify any use of handcuffs and any use of force. But when the information came around what happened, I don't believe that the shop owner wanted to take any action, the keys were restored and returned. He was able to then de-escalate and then, I think, leave the young child with her mother with an explanation. I think then the plan was to follow up with the school, with the parents and the officer the following day, but that hasn't happened, unfortunately. And that's something we will certainly be learning about. So I just want to, I suppose, from here, yes, there's the incident. There sounds like we'll investigate and take a complaint, and there'll be a further thorough investigation in terms of those actions, and that's something that people have a right to do, and completely acknowledge that. I think the other bit is really just thinking about ways to, what do we do next? How do we, I suppose, think about different ways that we can work alongside communities, we can, when we're out on patrol, doing the same things, trying to keep people safe, trying to keep our young people safe. In schools, we're trying to make sure that everyone has the very best chance learning in a really safe environment, and everyone playing their part, whether it's parents, communities, schools, police, to do that. So, I completely acknowledge the impact and the anger and the concern that you have in relation to this incident. I absolutely do, and I absolutely hear you. And as I say, I really, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to speak to the parents in person and to go through things in more detail. But also thinking about listening here tonight about the different ways in which we can work side by side. So School Patrol have got links already with the town centre team in Brixton. And there's up the School Watch and other patrols that take place as well. And the work with Lambeth Young Advisors around increasing the knowledge and increasing some of the accountability around stop and search. We've got a new police encounter panel that is recently starting. There's opportunities for people here tonight to be involved in more detail in the scrutiny of things like stop and search and the use of force as well. So we really do want to listen. We want to take your feedback. We want to try and get you involved in some of that scrutiny and that accountability, and think about the different ways that we can be a police service that does things on your behalf as well and alongside you, and to keep everyone in this borough, in your communities, safe. So I'll pause there and hand back.
Thank you. You'll all be making notes, I'm absolutely sure, ready to ask the Commander questions, but we'll come back to him later if we may. What I would say in relation to that is, look, this is not our first rodeo on this wing, is it? It's not our first rodeo in the last 30, 40 years. I lost count of the amount of meetings I've done like this, where I've heard the same promises, and I've heard the same promises from you when you first came, that you would improve trust and confidence. And trust and confidence hasn't improved in the 2 years that you've been here. In fact, reverse, it's got worse. So at some point, the rhetoric has to stop, and we have to have a meaningful conversation. Otherwise, it's not really communication, is it? Are you with me on that point? All right. So now we're going to move on, because I don't want to dominate as chair. I'll get accused of all sorts of bullying of the meeting. But Mr. Hashi, who is with us, Councillor Hashi, hear him, doctor. You had to work hard for that. So he's not making me forget it at all. Doctor, future leader of the council and probably future mayor of London, Councillor Hashi.
Thank you very much for coming. For me, one of the things I always advocate for is cohesion. Well, lips on it. So for me, I want to start with some stats. And these are historic stats. This is from 2014. Black people are 6 times more likely to be stopped and searched, 3 times more likely to be arrested, and more likely to receive a custodial sentence for the same crime as their white counterparts. That's 2014, right? Black residents are 4 times more likely to be unemployed, and in Lambeth, 1 in 3 children is born into poverty. So we've got a huge number of issues. In 2014, Lambeth had the highest rates of youth violence, highest incidence of mental health, highest rates of HIV, second highest rates of teen pregnancy. So we've been going through a lot. If we're being completely honest, this kind of experience is not new. I've been stopped over 60 times myself. The last time as a councillor, sitting in my own car. So what did I do? Did I just go on Twitter and write a, status? Did I look for retweets or likes? I know what I done, and I'm going to explain it to you as I move forward. Young black men are more likely to be the victims of crime, violent crime, as well as more likely to be the perpetrators of violent crime. BME people face inequality at all stages in the criminal justice system, at every point. Almost half of victims of serious youth violence are black young men, 47%. Now that's our side. So where we're looking for solutions, the police numbers have been cut. The safe enabled teams, who are the police officers that were in our areas day in, day out, building relationships, have been cut. So the environment is not conducive for any of us in our community. Now, again, I'm a Labour councillor, so I might be a bit political, so excuse me, right? But we got the Home Office now easing the restrictions on stop and search to make it easier to do a Section 60, when we know already black people are disproportionately affected by stop and search. So for me, this means we need even closer relationships with our local police officers. We need them to understand our position, our situation, understand our communities. Just last week, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday last week, we had shootings in Lambeth. This is a serious situation. Again, talking about my personal experience, I've lived in Stockwell since 1989. I know I'm kind of exposing my age there a little bit, but let's move forward from there. I've gone to university 3 times. I've done my first degree in biomedical science, done my PGC to be a science teacher, done a master's in forensic science, and by the grace of God, got an honorary PhD in 2016. I've never been in a gang. My mum wouldn't let me. I've never been involved in violence. But when I was 15, I was the victim of a stabbing. In 2008, I was a victim of a shooting, where the bullet went through my shoulder, cut the nerve to my arm, shattered my rib, collapsed my lung, and stopped half a centimetre above my spine. That, for me, shows that it's not a choice whether you're the victim of these kind of things. You live in a certain area, you have the risk level goes higher and higher and higher. And for me, it's important that we remember that. Now, going back to what we can do, this is the first part of a solution. Coming together, highlighting the issues to people like Colin, and making sure they know what our issues are. They know what we're asking for. But that can't mean that we just go home and that's it, we drop it, and wait for something else to happen. We have groups all over Lambeth that represent us and hold the police to account. We have the Stop and Search Monitor Group here, who looks after Stop and Search, looks at the stats, and holds the police to account. Nathaniel, here's the chair there. So like I said, these are people we're supposed to be connecting to and joining the groups. We have the Independent Advisory Group to the police. We've got the Deputy Chair here in Omar. These, again, holding the police to account. We have, as Lee said, we've got the school patrols. Volunteer, be part of the solution, be visible in our communities. How can he be here today begging for volunteers? Ain't we all here for the same issue? Yeah. For me, when we talk about this specific issue, I grew up with the father, right? So I feel like this is my daughter that was affected by this. With exams on the horizon, we have to make sure she's got confidence. How do we do that? By shouting? No, we have to make sure she understands what happened and she understands how to empower herself, how to hold police officers to account, what language to use, what consequences to use. Without that, we all will be disempowered. I think for me, we have to build back trust. Again, as Lee said, there's not a lot of trust currently, but we have to believe, we have to have faith. Without faith, where are we? For me, the process should be transparent. As Colin said, he's going to meet with the family, he's going to share with them the information properly, and we can let the family lead on how we respond to that. And for me, there should be balance. As I said, we had 3 shootings last week, one of them in Stockwell, just by Larkhall Park. The young person there, he got stabbed and shot on his way home just for coming from the shops. This is the environment that we're living in. So we can't pretend to blind ourselves to the need of the police. We do need the police, but they need us. We have to let them know how it works in our communities, what our issues are. And how do we do that? Making sure we're represented on the boards that hold them to account. So please, make sure you speak to these chairs that are in the room. I'm a local councillor for Stockwell, so please, I'm happy to speak to anyone. But again, Lee's also here. So please, let's not lose hope. Let's not just be angry and nothing else. I'm going to sit down, because sweat is pouring off my brow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's bitter medicine for the community to take, that we must step up and protect our own children from serious violence. There's medicine for the policeman to take, because we've had 30 years of this now, and it's only going in one direction, and it's not getting any better. The council has bitter medicine to take, because the infrastructure around police accountability as it is today is nothing like it was 20 years ago. And partly why trust is reduced is because we don't have those same systems of accountability we had in Lambeth 20 years ago. So I don't want to be up here from any moral high ground, but what we will say is that it doesn't take as particularly, it's not a particularly intelligence-led police stop to stop a 16-year-old girl in a school uniform wearing a hijab outside her school at 3:30 and think she's committing an act of burglary. To me, that doesn't make any sense. And I think that if we are to have confidence in stop and search, then the credibility of the reasonable basis of suspicion must stand the light of scrutiny. And I don't see very many 16-year-old hijab-wearing schoolgirl burglars running around Lambeth trying to rob people, do you? Right. So, and this is an officer who is in school. So he should know, really, he should know better. And that's what we're saying, that we're going to have to improve the trust and confidence on what you say is your intelligence-led. Because at the moment, I can tell you that people do not think this stop was intelligence-led. Am I right on that? Yes. Right. Okay, give a round of applause to our next speaker, who's Lester Holloway.
Thank you. My name's Lester, and I'm from The Voice newspaper. And I have to say, listening to what you said, Chief Superintendent Wingrove, that Hamza from the family asked for an apology. And, I think that the very fact that we're all here and so many more people are actually watching on YouTube, is a testament that something has gone wrong. And that really, I don't see why sorry has to be the hardest word. That, apologizing is the first step in order to actually build that confidence so that we can have that conversation. Because we talk about listening, we talk about having a conversation, but that conversation needs to be built on confidence. Confidence that it's not just about listening, but it's about hearing, because as Lee has said, we keep hearing over and again, not just in this borough, but in other boroughs as well. Everywhere I go, when incidents happen, that it's about learning the lessons. But we need to know that lessons are being learned. And I spoke to a police officer from Lambeth about this case a couple of days ago, and she told me that there were no learnings. This is her exact quote: "There were no learnings from this incident." And even if a crime was suspected, we know that that she did nothing wrong because there's been no further action. So an apology, I think, is really the first step. Because what has happened is not a de-escalation. This is again proof that this incident was not de-escalated. It has been escalated from something which could have been dealt with by a teacher to something which is now a big community incident. So I think that we've got. The other thing as well is I was telling Lee just before the meeting that I intervened in a stop and search just on the way here by London Transport Police in Euston. And this is the second lot of excuses that I've heard. And basically, the excuse is that we have crime in the community, so therefore we have to have stop and search. But just as a couple of hours ago in Euston, there was no further action, and that for vast majority of stops and searches, there's nothing found, or if there is something found, in a small number of cases, it's cannabis. That ultimately that is not. A reason for that's not justified by the level of crime that we have in the community, because those stops and searches over virtually nothing is not helping people who are suffering real crime. And I think that's a real concern that many of us have, that actually the level of crime and stop and search are in a way two different things. When we're talking about crime and dealing with crime, and we all want to deal with crime, we need to deal with the nature of policing, but we also need to deal with the causes of crime. And one of the things I always find amazing, really, is that the police themselves do not speak out enough about the causes of crime. When austerity cuts to services happen, the police should actually be saying to the politicians, hang on a second, if you do this, crime will go up. If you cut youth services, if you make all of these cuts to services, that actually this has an effect on crime. The nature of work, the fact that work doesn't pay, that poverty is increasing, we've got a cost of living crisis, this all causes crime. And so, when people talk about, I'm not really one who's talking about defunding the police, but I think that, when some people talk about it, what they're really talking about is dealing with the causes of crime. It's actually having a system which is geared towards solving the problems. It's geared towards people who are in crisis, being handled and supported by all services, by the police service, by the mental health service, by the housing service, and all of these working together, not as forces, but as services. And I think that's the crucial difference that is needed. And so, I think that we do need to think about the whole nature of policing and how that is constructed, and the part that the community have within that. And a police organisation is called the Association of Police Accountability. And I think that the word accountability is so important. It's so important in this because we don't have accountability right now, as far as I'm concerned. We have a lot of forums, but we don't have accountability. And those are two different things. I mean, I used to be a counsellor for my sins twice. Never go back, but I admire those people. I admire those people that are doing it. And, so I kind of know, from my own experience in that borough, the deal, really, which is that you have a bunch of forums where you have the same faces, the same black faces, black and brown faces, which are talking about the problems, and then you have the same faces that are sort of, screw-facing when those points are being made, and you've got police there sitting at the front, inevitably, saying, well, we listen, but nothing ever changes. And, that's why I think, when we're talking about the nature of policing, we've got to involve the community, not just in situations like this, but we've actually got to be around the table designing policy, designing systems, designing the way that police handle these things. So I would like to see if many things come out of this situation, many things come out of this meeting. But one of the things I would like to see come out of this meeting, is a pledge to actually design a series of, protocols about what to do in these kind of situations. When you've got kids on the street that are messing about, I think this was just, from what I understand, basically messing about. I used to mess about when I was a kid. I'm sure that everyone on I don't know about you, Chief Superintendent, most of us messed about when we were young. And the trouble is that in the past we never used, certainly where I grew up in Hammersmith Fulham in Shepherd's Bush, I don't think there was that sort of level of criminalisation that went on. There were in some parts where, like in Lambeth, where we had uprisings because of the level of sus laws that were going on. But these are situations which don't need that level of criminalisation, and that's really one of the big concerns, both here, I think, and also from the child queue situation. In Hackney, it's that police in schools where there never used to be. You've got metal detectors everywhere. There's a feeling of militarization going on in schools, and it's actually setting up kids against police. When if we're serious about dealing with crime, we need to be working together. So I think that's what's so disappointing, really, about both these cases and all the other cases that actually are going on all the time that we report on. The other thing I just want to end on this, which is that when I was speaking to the parents, they were talking to me about how scared the girl is now of police. So in the last 2 weeks, she's been very scared of police. Whenever she sees police, it totally freaks her out. And I think that's just worth reflecting on, really, because when it comes to taking control of the streets, if you like, and dealing with people who are really causing the threats, to life, the people that need to be scared are the people who are doing the crime, not ordinary people. Because when ordinary people are scared of the police, then that's a system failure. To be honest, that's a system failure. And so, I'd just like to say that I think we need to recognise, actually, most of us, I think, do recognise that incident is probably, along with many other incidents that happen to young black kids, at that age, have a huge impact on them for the rest of their adult life. And if they get into the system, if they're criminalised, whether it be for minor crimes or whatever, that has a long-lasting impact on their life, on their prospects. We know that employers are looking for reasons not to hire people, and any smell of a criminal record is going to count against us. So if one community is over-policed, that has a huge long-lasting impact on the whole community, on the level of wealth, on the level of income, on the level of jobs, and it's a self-reinforcing thing. So I think that, it's part of a bigger problem, but we need that police accountability, real accountability, and we need to have involvement in the system, in designing the right systems, and also in selecting the Metropolitan Police Commissioner. We should be around the table as a community, making clear that of the expectations that we have, because if that's not laid down, then all that's going to happen is the next Met Commissioner is going to be exactly the same as the last one. So anyway, sorry to be so negative, but I just had to say that.
Thank you. All right. Now, can I get Aaliyah or Bex or somebody? Anybody here from Code 7? No, where are you? I need somebody to hand the mic to people who are asking questions in the audience. And yeah, you see, she thought I was going to ask her to speak. That's why she ducked down there. So if she could come up. Do you want to get your pens and pencils out, people, table? Because they will be asking you questions, and it'll be good for you to recall what you were asked. We only need one of you, because he's only got one mic. Okay, so should I take questions in groups of 3, and then we'll answer them and take the next group of 3? Is that all right? Happy with that? Yeah? Okay. So hands up, indications. All right, one at the back, one just in front of you, and the young sister with the lovely turquoisey head wrap.
Thank you. Stand up. Thank you so much for everything that was said. I agree with a lot of the speakers, unfortunately not necessarily Colin. But I wanted to just ask Colin about the training and de-escalation techniques, because you've talked about reasonable, and reasonable is something we've heard with Child Q, as well as the Bianca Williams stop. And I think the issue here is what the officers, and you've said it's an individual case that they have to make that judgment, but it's not matching up with what the black community think is reasonable. So it's just asking really, and as to how that training, and you say lessons learned, but I feel like at whose expense? The editor of The Voices just explained that children are being traumatized by these stops and searches. So really, it's about asking you, why should I as a parent have to make sure that my children are knowledgeable as the difference between a stop and account, a stop and search, in a way that my white colleagues, white friends don't have to? So why is it on us to do more? Why do I have to spend my evening here to talk to you, to make sure that you understand that if I need you, I should be able to call you? But at the moment, if anybody here was robbed, if anybody here was raped, God forbid, I'm not sure we would call on you. That's a major problem. A major, major problem. And I just feel so tired about it. So I'd really like to hear more about that training on de-escalation, the understanding about the AAs, and what you're doing with taking those lessons forward without leaving our children to be traumatized first.
Yeah. Okay. Hand at the back, and then the young lady just in front with the mask. Please, questions. Keep it tight. Long.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Superintendent, you've confirmed at least the fact that the use of handcuffs must be justified. So what would have been the justification for using handcuffs on... So I should add that in addition to the fact that it must be justified, such justification is can only be if the person being arrested is a threat to themselves or a threat to the officer or anyone else. So what threat did that young 16-year-old child pose to that officer or to herself that justified the use of handcuffs? And I understand if there's no justification, then it's an assault. So not only was she wrongfully, falsely imprisoned, she was assaulted on the occasion as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm really concerned. Like, I'm a friend of the parents, and I know the family really well. So a 16-year-old girl was being handled by a man with females. females near her. She's wearing a scarf. Some of us are not the best with men, even as grown women. I just need more information. Yeah.
Okay, we've got the first three. Can I just see the next three? So, stop and search man at the back there. This wonderful sister at the front. No, this guy here with the red. Not now, not now, after we've answered these questions.
Oh.
Then here. Then who else indicated? You, Jackie. So it'll go there, here, and then there for the next bunch.
Cool.
But we'll let Colin and anybody else from the panel who wants to answer. Don't all feel compelled, but if you want to answer, we will do so.
Thank you. So I think, so just to answer the first question, just around training. So police officers and police staff go through a huge amount of training from the moment they join through training school, and then annually, 2 or 3 times a year, doing training, particularly around what we used to call officer safety, but now we call it public safety, police officer safety training. And that is really around the use of equipment, what we call personal protective equipment that you'll see officers carry. That'd be around how to deal with individuals that may be committing crimes or may have reasonable grounds to stop and speak to somebody. And a whole range of techniques. And they have to do that at least twice a year in order to stay what we stay up to date with current practice and any learning that comes through different reviews during that time. Part of that training now, so in the last sort of year or so, we've been getting more members of the public involved in not only looking at some of that training, but also in how the curriculum for some of that training is developed. I sit, for example, on a group with our learning development teams to look at, which has members of public community representatives. As we talked about, Umar and Nathaniel here, from other boroughs, influencing what that training and bring the lived experience into training to, in a way, as you rightly say, why should we have to go finding the facts? Actually, it should be built into the policing system, the way policing training, the experience of communities and that understanding from a really early stage. And we've had members of the community from Lambeth go to speak to new recruits, for example, speak to the new town centre team that has formed in Lambeth, and speak to teams that come and join our borough, because we get new officers come through regularly, to really provide that insight into, as Lee talked about and others talked about the history of Lambeth, talked about the lived experience, the issues, and so on, so that people really have that in their minds about the type of policing and the type of issues and the empathy and understanding that is required. I think that is just an ongoing thing. I think we need to do more of that. I think bringing the public into training and influencing officers so that we are more part of the community and more vested and more understanding of what happens. And we have other settings. So we have, Lester made a point just around that, and also Councillor Hashi around that community engagement. So the officers also do a lot of community engagement activities to learn more about the local communities and bring that into their experiences. So the Lambeth summer camps, various things on different estates, working with Lambeth Young Advisors. In fact, we brought the young advisors into some of our training for my new senior team. Niall at the back there is the Chief Inspector. When he joined our BCU, I wanted to give him a training experience called a Day of the Life in Lambeth, and brought in some of the young advisors and independent advisory group members into some of that, so that even my senior team got a flavour and a sense of the way that the community and residents want our officers to operate. So it's a really, really powerful point. And the other thing that you talked about, which I'm really keen to hear more about, is that confidence to pick up the police when you need help. So, we know, for example, if you think about cases around domestic abuse, for example, that it often takes up to 35 incidents in the home before a woman will have the confidence to phone the police. 35 times. So, and then for black women, that's even longer. It's even harder. So how do we change that, and how do we overcome that? And all these impacts around when an incident like this has happened that sparks the interest and concern that you have here tonight, ask us to think about how do we answer those more other searching questions around our relationship with communities, so that we can really serve you, so you don't have to, you can just pick up that phone and you can call us and we will help. And by the way, you can do that. You can call us in emergencies, in non-emergencies, and we will always respond to you. And we'll always try our very best. So, but there's more to do, and really, I think that's a really well-made point. So, the other question was around justification for the use of handcuffs. So, absolutely. So, any use of force by officers, it has to be covered in law. And the officers using any handcuffs have to be trained. So the training that I described, twice a year, re-accredited, if you like, in terms of their training. And you're right. So the use of handcuffs in violent situations and so on, would need to be justified. Also, in situations if someone has been detained for the purposes of a search, for example, and the officer, believes that they are trying to escape, trying to leave. Would be another reason why they would use handcuffs, because they're investigating what they believe to be a crime. And I know that there's a huge difference of opinion between me and everyone else here. I understand that, I sincerely do. And there will also be when a complaint is made by the parents, clearly there'll be a really thorough investigation, so that we can make sure that we fully answer in detail what exactly happened, and we need more information to collect in order to do that. So forgive me if I don't give you full detail about what happened and what we know, because we don't know everything as yet, but that formed part of that investigation, and that will be with the parents and their representatives. So, but you're right, but there are other circumstances you can use handcuffs. If someone's trying to escape, for example, or prevent arrest and so on, but the officer has to record that, use their body-worn video. In about 97% of occasions, those encounters are recorded on our body-worn video. They get supervised. Nathaniel that mentioned with the community monitoring group around stop and search, part of that role is to examine and look at what we do around that. So I know we want to hear from people interested in that work as well. So there are those mechanisms. And then I think the last point was, I completely understand how someone would feel, a male officer, a 16-year-old child, or any circumstance in that interaction, and how we heard about how the young girl is feeling. That breaks my heart that she doesn't want to speak to the police or is frightened. And I really hope that we will be able to work to repair that, absolutely, because that's really, really important. And again, it comes back to my question, or my reply really, around the handcuffs, is that in any use of force or any interaction would have to be justified. Yeah, so wherever possible, if a female officer is available, a female officer would interact with a female member of the public. But where that's not possible, and depending on the situation, it can be a male officer in relation to a female, or indeed a female officer in relation to a male. So it's very, you can see on the short clips in social media, very dynamic, very fast-moving situation, a lot of interest quickly from people there. So it's very difficult to be able to do any of those things in that space of time, I think.
I think we can't. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I will just say, because I know that probably there's other questions to come, but we are increasing the number of female officers we have. So in the last year, we've had 180 new female officers join our BCU, policing in Lambeth alone. Our recruitment of female officers is going really well, making great progress. We have a number of female officers in schools. We have a walk and talk scheme, which if you Google Lambeth Walk and Talk, you can go out with a female officer, have a conversation about your local area, local issues affect you, and speak to a female officer about things. And we're finding that's a really powerful way to engage and break down some barriers as well. So So, no, your point is well made, but hopefully that just provides us with opportunities to explore that further.
Okay, we're currently joined by our wonderful local MP, MP Flo. Give her a round of applause, please. Now, she was working late at Parliament, so we're delighted she was able to make it. So she made sure that she was here tonight. We had a great meeting so far, as you can see. That room, where the doors are closed, is packed with people who are live streaming this in that room so that they can hear us. So we've got that room packed, and we've got more people still heading down to the venue. So we're going to be completely oversubscribed and so on. I'm going to take I just opened up for questions. So I'm going to take the next 3 before coming to you, and then you can have your input, and then we will return back to questions. Is that okay, people? Are you happy with that? Yeah. So if I take the next 3 then, which was the young man at the back, and can I just say, because I've just been approached by a Muslim woman, local resident, in the next room, who's prepared to speak to you, who says that your schools officer, the said officer that we're talking about in this example, attended her house, and when she asked him, he wanted to come inside, and when she asked him if he could wait while she covered her hair, he said no, and she claims he pushed his way in while she was uncovered in her hijab, and she wants to speak to you because she's now realized it's the same officer that was involved in this particular incident. So for all that you're saying about the forum and training, there is still a lot of work to do. But I want to go to the young man at the back. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Good evening, community. Good evening, panelists. My name is Nathaniel Martin, chairman of the Lambeth Communities Monitoring Group. We'd love to invite you guys to become members so we can hold the police accountable. My question is directed towards Colin. Specifically, you may not be able to answer it on behalf of the whole Met, but at least on behalf of the Borough Command that you manage, race has been an issue within the police for ages, and I, without a shadow of a doubt, believe that if a white girl had been doing the same thing as this young lady, it would have been treated completely differently. What I would like to know is, what do you as Borough Commander plan on doing to educate and change within the Borough Command unit in Lambeth and Southwark? How do you plan to educate and train your officers regarding the racism within the institution, and how can we see that as a community?
Nice. Okay, we've got this sister at the front. She's standing up now. And then where did Jackie. Yeah. Can the lady who made the complaint in relation to the schools officer next door come through to this side, just so that I can point her out to the police officers who can link her? Oh, in fact, I'll get her to do the details out there. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name's Sandra. I'm with the Brixton Bugle. I have a question for Colin in regards to the number of police officers and vehicles that attended the incident. I think Hamza said that it was 60. 14 vans. And how many police officers?
In excess of 60, I think he said.
I think the figure 60 was stated, yes. So I'm just wondering if you're as concerned as you say you are about, promoting good relationships with the community and et cetera, why when it's an issue in a school or just outside the school with a small group of children, why is it proportionate to have such a huge number of cars and officers attend? It doesn't seem to add up. And also, when you talk about de-escalation, the fact that there's so many officers and cars is obviously going to cause a small situation to seem much worse than it is. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to take this question, we'll take some responses from Colin, and then we'll go over to Flo, okay?
Hi, good evening. I'm Jackie Clark. I just wanted to ask, with regards to the child Q outcomes and the findings, how has Lambeth reacted to that? And I mean, what sort of response have you had as a force in regards to child Q? Because it's very recent, so we wouldn't expect to see something of this nature so close behind child Q, following on from what transpired. That's one question. The other one is another small question is, if the student was in such close proximity to her own school, why was somebody from the school not called onto this to the incident to assist as a responsible adult rather than the person going in? And this isn't in a question. So far, you've been very hypothetical. You've said a lot of things in a general manner, not specific, because as you say, you haven't spoken to the actual person. How long do you think we might have to wait to get a witness report or an incident report from this specific person so that there can be a full investigation and outcomes of the inquiry?
So again, firstly to Nathaniel's question in relation to education and training around racism. So all officers, so the College of Policing produces now training for all officers, and again it starts at training school with new recruits coming into the force, and then is part of our ongoing development in terms of training packages that are developed. And I think going back to one of my previous questions about how we get the community voice into how what goes into those packages, what goes into that training, so that it has that lived experience, it's kept up to date, it has the voice of local residents and communities in the training, so that, for example, we have, as I said, I mentioned before, without repeating what I said earlier, really, it's bringing local people in to when we start a town centre team, for example, really important that we've got local people. In fact, we had one of our IAG members help select the person who's in charge of the town centre team. We had a training day with the officers and local people to talk about the area, the style of the policing, the things that really mattered most to local people. So it's a long process in terms of increasing the knowledge and understanding that kind of cultural intelligence for officers and staff in relation to communities that we serve. I think the other really, really strong and powerful thing that we need to do better at is recruitment and having greater representation in the police service from the communities that we serve. Having more black police officers, for example, I think is incredibly important in terms of trust and confidence, in terms of working side by side with officers, different cultures, very diverse, bringing different backgrounds and skills into policing, which is incredibly important. You learn different things, you work in diverse teams are always the best type of teams. And so we have we have a new outreach team that have been working for about a year. They've been going to various different community events. They go to local colleges, linking in with local groups to try and establish links to encourage people to join policing and join the Met. And I think that's, again, really important. And so I think, and then lastly, it's around that community accountability, scrutiny, that challenge when we don't get things right, when things happen. What do we learn from? How can we evidence that we're changing and doing better? Forums like this and others give future opportunities to come back and say, well, after this happened, this happened. Councillor Hashi talked about some of that scrutiny and accountability and the importance of having community groups that hold the police account, say what are you doing, and for us to then, having listened, come back and say, well, this is what we've done, what do you think? Or if you're thinking about, some of the conversation was about the nature of the policing or the type of response that we think we should do when something like this happens. Well, again, taking the feedback tonight and thinking, well, how can we do something that is informed by what you think is the right response and what we should be doing? And again, I think that's really important. The other more specific question about the number of officers that attended, So we don't think 60 officers attended. What happened is the officer pressed what we call the Emma button, which is when someone wants urgent assistance, it'll ping an alert on the radio system, and then nearby units will attend, and then sufficient will attend before the incident is being dealt with, and then officers will then leave and go off and do other things. And so that's what happened in this case. So there would have been scenes of some police cars turning up and other officers coming to that officer's aid and assistance. But we think it was probably more likely around about 20 to maybe 30 officers. Certainly wasn't.
You've got to have the right information for this meeting.
Yeah. So, but completely understand that the point is that it felt like too many officers responding to school children outside, and I completely accept how that looks like. And I think one of the things we do encourage and do look out for and is making sure that when incidents like this happened, is part of that de-escalation is for our supervisors on the scene to then send other units away, or to say that we don't need anyone else coming here, we've got sufficient people. So it's that management of a scene that we're always trying to improve, so that it doesn't feel over-policed or the response is too much, and we can de-escalate those things. And in relation to teachers, so I mentioned School Watch, which is a partnership with Lambeth Council, the school and police in relation to patrols in and around schools. So we know that teachers did come out as part of School Watch to help and diffuse and manage the situation. So we know that that did happen. There's been a debrief in the school, and I don't think anyone is from the school is here tonight, but we do know that took place. And I think that approach is a good approach to have, not just police officers responding, again, the point made around members of the public, teachers and others responding, to make sure that we get the right response to incidents when they take place. So I'll pause there and... So I do apologise. No, yeah, so I do apologise. So absolutely, I mean, the serious case review and the MET response in terms of apologising, responding to what happened there, absolutely distressing incident, and to hear about what happened and acknowledge that should never have happened. We've done a lot of work since then with schools, with some of our community groups, to make sure that that type of thing would not happen in Lambeth. We've had no incidents like that in Lambeth in schools. And again, there's other things at the moment in terms of Met policy around how the Met changes in the future. So, for example, increasing the level of supervision. So if an officer is going to undertake a stop and search in those circumstances, is actually seeking either authority or permission from a more senior officer first, so there's checks and balances in the system. But there's also a lot of work with schools to make sure that schools and police work very much closely together around managing any incident in a school, and that's something we work really closely with those schools to do through protocols and policies, through making sure that the approach is right, through making sure we've got good engagement with teachers and pupils within those schools, to make sure that any response in that setting is professional, appropriate, and is enabled, is done in a way that supports the school and what it's trying to do for young people. So, again, there'll be more work that the Met is doing that, in relation to that coming out. There'll be more work through our community monitoring group to make sure and to have those checks and balances in place, so that we can be scrutinised around some of the activity. So thank you for the question, and I'll hand back.
Okay, well, we're going to ask some more questions. We've got to hear from the MP. Now, I'm going to take another three. I know Hamza wanted to ask a question. This is after you've spoken. Hamza wanted to ask a question. I can see the young sister at the back, and I saw this sister here, and then I'll take another round of three after that. I can see you, don't worry. I'll try and pick you up. Now, this... Hold on. Hold on. Now, I know that it's hot. I know, that to a certain extent you're getting impatient because what you're hearing is not matching your reality of your experience. Is that right? Yeah. So whilst Colin Wingrove is great at talking in a theoretical sense about what should happen, right? What is actually happening is the reverse. And you, Colin, need to take account of the fact that confidence has dropped under your watch. And so what we need to know is what you're going to do differently to revive that confidence. Am I right on that question? Yeah, because I know some people say I'm bullying the meeting, but it seems to me quite obvious that if disproportionality has worsened in your 2 years, and it has, if confidence has dropped in your 2 years, and it has, if the rate of police complaints on racism in Lambeth have gone up in these 2 years, and it has, then that's your record. That's your responsibility, right? So we can talk theoretical management theory from now till Christmas, but the reality is the experience of this community is way different from what you're articulating. Can I get a witness? Thank you. Now, you know, I always love to see our people rising and shining, and here is a riser and a shiner. MP Flo, give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Lee, and good evening, everybody. My apologies for lateness. Lee mentioned that I was voting and it's a late night. This is actually an early night because we sometimes vote until 1 a.m. in Parliament. I was voting on some of the issues of the cost of living, and we voted tonight to try and get the government to introduce a windfall tax because the energy companies continue to make profits while your bills continue to go up. So that's why I was late, because I thought it was really important for me to vote on that amendment. And again, I am sorry that I've missed some of the opening remarks and discussions, but I just wanted to bring it back 2 steps. I was elected in December 2019, but I'm speaking to you here not just as the MP, I'm speaking to you as someone from the community. I'm speaking to you as a sister, I'm speaking to you as a mother. I'm speaking to you as someone who could have been the older sister for this young girl that was stopped and searched. She's our young girl. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, over the last few years, under this government, and I don't want to get too political, we have big issues within the police. One of the areas that we are seeing is the criminalisation of BME people, and they seem to be getting younger. Again, we're all here tonight, but 2 days ago, our Home Secretary just removed a piece of legislation, removed the guidance on Section 60 stop and searches, which again would have a disproportionate impact on our community here in Lambeth. I've lost track of the amount of times I've spoken in Parliament in my short 2.5 years on the issues of policing, whether it's racism, whether it's sexism, whether it's homophobia, and just the sheer disregard that some police officers have for our communities. Along with a number of other London MPs, we are very clear that the next police commissioner coming to lead the Metropole in London has to be honest about the issues facing policing in London. That means being honest about the fact that there is racism within the police. That means being honest about the fact that, unfortunately, there is sexism within the police. That means being honest about the fact that it's not just about recruiting more BME officers, which we want, it's about some of the training and a deep-seated culture in our police. We are how many years from the McPherson report, and we are still seeing incidents happening to some of our community. I met with my constituents' parents on Friday. I think that was really important just to hear their side. And again, I don't want to go over what's been said tonight, but I think it is important, and I'm glad that Colin is here as the most senior police officer, as the borough commander, in giving you that commitment that there will be an investigation, because I think it's important for us to have all the facts. There are many different media clips, many different clippings. I've witnessed a stop and search, not in Lambeth, in Peckham on Meeting House Lane, that within seconds, the situation changed. So we have to be honest that sometimes things do get out of hand, and depending on where you stand in terms of filming that, it could be a different angle to someone else filming. So we have to be very careful about what we are spreading online and some of the information. It's really, really important for us to look at that information, because we are talking about a young girl here. Let's not forget that. That's what we are here for. Secondly, across London, our police officers have been cut. That is a fact. In this borough of Lambeth, we only have one police station that any of you as a member of the public can go to. One police station. Brixton. That is not good enough. Before I became an MP, I was campaigning to make sure Kennington Road Police Station isn't turned into another Park Plaza hotel. No offence, Park Plaza. It's really, really important that we look at why we are losing our police officers. A few years ago, Lambeth and Southwark merged to be one police unit. In my role as the Assembly member, I led the campaign with the current MPs then across Lambeth and Southwark to oppose that scheme because I think it's frankly too big an area for one borough commander to oversee. And what you're seeing is that with two high density boroughs like Lambeth and Southwark, unfortunately things will go wrong, and that's what we're seeing here. And I've been to see some of the new recruits joining Lambeth and Southwark Police Control. Really good officers coming forward, taking that challenge to come and work with us. But equally, we need to make sure the training that's going on with those officers in working in our community is right. And I think that's where some of these issues arise. I think the other thing I want to highlight is the fact that we have to be the police in our community sometimes. Over the past week, just this weekend gone, we've had 3 shooting incidents in Lambeth, one not too far from here on Union Road. It's so painful, and one of the most difficult parts of my job is speaking to bereaved mothers. It's mainly mothers. Because when there is an incident, whether it's a stabbing incident, a knife, or a gun-enabled crime incident, within our community there's silence. But it's these same police that we want to come and work with us. So we have to be honest in terms of saying there are some issues within our community that we have to address, but equally, we need to make sure that, the police recognise that policing in a borough like Lambeth is by consent. I've also raised the issue of handcuffing and the use of force directly with the Met Commissioner and the former Met Commissioner. Again, I didn't get what I feel was a suitable reply. And I think that's another area we need to look at. These are young people. And if your first interaction with a police officer is so negative, do we wonder why these children would then grow up as young adults to fear and mistrust the police? Do we wonder why there'll then be an incident and these young children will not come forward to the police in terms of being given them vital information? And we've also got to remember, sadly, our children are victims of crime. And they don't report that sometimes because they feel that the police won't help them. So it is so good to see some of you here tonight, but this can't be the end. We need to look at how we get engaged in all those different forums. Time is precious for all of us. I'm not going to lie, but if we really want to look at how we can help the police, because they need our help, if we really need to look at how we're going to help the police, it has to start with us. It has to start with us in terms of making sure we are there. It has to start with us in terms of holding them to account. It has to start with us in making sure we follow through on those complaints. So many people have feel that they've been let down by the police. They don't follow through on those complaints. Those statistics are patchy. Again, I've called out the IAPC because, again, I think, there are some issues there. It is a very long-winded process, and that puts people off. And the government have designed it that way to frustrate us. So we need to look at how we can change that. These are all the things that I raise, and my 2 other Lambeth MPs, Beryl Addy and Helen Hayes, continuously raise with the government. But I'll be honest with you, it's painful because my party is in opposition. And it's painful to see some of the legislation coming through from this government. The Police Crime Court and Sentencing Bill, that's going to stop all of us actively participating and using our free speech to demonstrate. They will police us and lock us up for that. That's what's going on in Parliament. So the root cause of this issue is not in Lambeth, it's in government. So we need to look at how we direct our energy to try and get the answers from the Home Secretary, from the Mayor of London. I've written to the Mayor of London about this incident. I've written to the school about this incident, and I've also written to Colin. We need those clear answers, and I would just urge all of you, let's work together to get justice for this young girl.
Always worth waiting for, but let me just throw in a few facts. Only 0.8% of all race complaints against the Met were found and upheld. That means 99.2% were found to not be substantiated. That's not, those are Ceausescu figures. Those are Russian statistics. They're Chairman Mao statistics. They're not a modern democracy statistics, are they, with any sense of the real world? Let me say a thing about joining the police. There were 2.5 black African Caribbean police officers in the Met when the Lawrence Report published in 1999. Yeah? In 2021, 2022, right, it is 2.9. It's not that black people are not joining the police. It's they're joining the police, they're not staying there when they get there. So it's not that we are not reluctant to join, it's that when we get inside, the culture is not one in which black officers... Now, things are changing, and I hear retention rates are going up, and they'll need to go up if we're to have a representative police force. But we've got far too few black officers in Lambeth. We rarely see them. We had more in the 80s than we have now. I don't understand even how that happens. How have we gone backwards? I'm going to take the next 3 questions. Hamza wanted to ask a question. The lady at the back wanted to ask a question. Then I was coming over here. And then after we get a response, we'll take another round of 3. Hamza.
Thank you very much. I know Flo said that we shouldn't use some of the videos that are going online as evidence. But there is like one comment that you made earlier that I kind of just want to bring back to you. You said that she was detained because the police officer thought that she had the keys. But in many of the videos, you can see many of the other students in the case that she did not have the keys and even presenting the keys to the officer. So at that point, why was there a need to put her in, detain her in another shop? Why was there a need to call the police, more police officers? And the second point on that, why did this school officer call an emergency urgent line when it was a child that he was with? Was he in danger? No, he wasn't. And on top of that as well, considering what Lee said as well about the history of this school officer, it clearly shows us that he was not vetted. And even if he was vetted, he was not regularly vetted to see if he was a fit person to be in this community. Clearly, many of the students don't like him. That in and of itself shows you that something wrong. So my question to you is just what kind of training did this school officer have, and what will happen next in regards to this person, because he's clearly not fit to be where he is now. Thank you.
Yeah. Lady at the back. Into the mic, please.
Yeah, so I'm speaking for my friend who was here just a minute ago. She has to do a night shift because she's a doctor. And so she wrote this question. She's a local to this area and like a friend of the family's. And she says, unfortunately, I wasn't here because I have to go to work. I want to direct this question to any representative at Platnus. As an ex-student and local resident, I'm dismayed to hear that many years later, we are still seeing radically and racially motivated instances of police brutality against our young students. She wants to ask the school how they allow this to happen, and she wants to ask who are the teachers that have a role in duty and pastoral care to create a space where young children can actually be, have a space to de-escalate situations, and they can be equipped with the knowledge to know what is and isn't within the bounds of the law. She wants to know how the school are going to be moving forward to prep young people.
Okay, could you text that to one of our people here, and then we'll pick it up and we'll make sure we deliver it he'll answer it from the panel, but a more detailed. You can come back on, but let me take the audience 3.
Who's
so
next?
that was one there. There was the lady at the back, with the mask on, with the light blue there. Yeah.
No problem.
And then who did I say who was third? Raise your... Yes, the lady in the middle row. Yeah. Go ahead.
Speaking, can you hear me? Speaking as a victim of Met Police brutality and forced arrest and imprisonment in 1978, and the friend of Aravindan Balakrishnan, who was framed by the Metropolitan Police.
I know this case, and I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to shut it down. Can you take the mic away, please? Sorry. You're trying to hijack this meeting. You're trying to hijack this meeting, and we will not allow it. Please take the mic. Thank you very much. Give her a round of applause. Thank you very much. Over here, please. Over here, please. Are you coming? Thank you. Thanks, Bex. Doing a great job. Go ahead, sis.
Hi, I've got a couple of questions. Can you confirm that there is body cam footage of the incident? Police body cam footage.
Can you confirm you got police body cam of the incident?
And a couple of wider questions. I'd like to ask Colin why his officers are abusing the use of handcuffs in stop and searches. My son was stopped and searched several months ago and handcuffed within a few seconds of 4 plain police officers, close police officers approaching him. They searched his rucksack. He's a teenager. They searched his rucksack, found some ID, radioed it in, realised he'd never been stopped before, and then uncuffed his hands and let him go. They did not identify themselves initially as police officers. They did not give him a record of the stop and search. They did not tell him which police station they were from. I immediately made a complaint, asked for body cam footage. It took nearly 3 months to be told there was no record, there was no body cam footage of the stop and search, and there was no record of the stop and search. Now, I was shocked. I thought, how can this be? Now, fortunately, because they found his ID, they radioed it in, and that was the proof that he was stopped and searched. Now, it's taken several months to get any sort of apology. The investigation has been done, but as yet, I have not received a copy of the report. It has been dragging on for months and months. I feel they're trying to drag me down and for me to give up. We will not give up as a family. We're hoping to get some sort of justice. My son has been traumatized. He felt embarrassed. It was on the high street. Everyone was looking at him, shaking their head as if he was guilty of a crime. His only crime was that he was black, he was wearing a jacket, and the officer said, "Oh, it's a bit hot to be wearing a jacket."
Your boy, is that your boy?
Yes, this is my son. This is recent, some months ago. I don't think you know about it though, okay? And it's been dragging on, and we can't seem to get justice. Sorry, we can't seem to get justice. And I want to know why your officers are abusing their powers and why they are so quick to put teenagers in handcuffs. Within a few seconds of my son being stopped, he was in handcuffs, surrounded by 4 plainclothes police officers who did not identify themselves.
All right, going to move on because time is running and passing and running ahead of us. One more. The guy with the hat.
Yes, Otepan, good evening to everybody. Yeah, I'm Prophet Kwaku from GalaxyAfiwe.net. Now, I've been a resident of Lambeth for the best part, well, this year I'll be 60. So I went to school, primary school in Lambeth, grew up in Lambeth in the 70s and the 80s, go through the 90s. I have a 16-year-old son that is experiencing what I experienced when I was them age there. These people have no regard for us. Them don't respect us, and we can do all the pretty talk we want. Them don't business. We have the business. Like I think it's the sister over there said, we have to start policing our community. And if it means we have to grab up some of them youth and box them up, and that we have to do. Yeah? Real talk. Them
Hold on,
police
yeah,
boy,
yeah, yeah. Hold on.
No, hold on, King.
Hold on. Because, hold on. We're not talking about. We are not.
Yeah.
Please do. So
But hold on, I'm not finish yet.
Yeah.
Hold on there. Hold on here. What we have to do, we have to create our own institutions where we can protect our children. And we have them. But we have to have them every week. You understand? Because the police them has been talking about retraining for, them are trained, some of the people them train must have pension and all, and them don't change. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Now the officer there, with the commander, he might be genuine. He might be truly genuine. You understand me? I say, but the reality is the foot on the ground. You understand what I'm saying? They have no, and even when you as an adult stop to ask, officer, what's happening? Could you stay back? And all them something there. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? They want to generate the violence. You understand? Because the reality is this. If everybody good, them don't have a job. If no crime don't commit, them don't have a job. You understand? So the school and them is in partnership. Because what happened to that young woman, what these police, them don't they read? That happened to the young sister over in North London.
Child queue, but we need
child queue.
Yeah,
and then now
we're running out of time quick.
Yeah, sorry, King. Couple weeks later, a police officer in a school does that again. That means they got content blanc to do what they want. The sister been waiting for months. My son, no our son. The sister been waiting for months. They do it. Not everything you have to go up on the internet. You can't go in there to see nobody or talk to robot. You understand? We have to do our own thing. We have to take over them schools. We have to be the governors in them schools. We have to be the teachers in them schools. And we have to be the police in them schools. Fire for them.
Can I just say, the reason why we call this meeting is because we want people to join Lambeth School Patrol. That's what we want to do. We want to go out there so we can say to the officer, you know what, you don't have to worry, you got it covered. We got that covered. The girl's just messing around. It's nothing to see here. Or if our children are into some of that violence, we can get involved better than they can to say, yo, stop that, calm down. But we're not bringing violence to violence. We're bringing wisdom, knowledge, peace, and love to the situation. And that's what will save us. All right. So somebody was indicating, and I can't see who. Who was it? All right. Well, look, while you're doing that, I'm going to take a response from, I'll come to you next in the next round of 3, but let me take a response from the panel, yeah? All right, because we're running out of time. You wanted to respond something on schools. You want to do that now? Yeah.
So I was just going to respond in terms of the school. So like I said, I sent an email to the school and they sent me quite a lengthy reply just detailing what they have done to date. But I think, again, I will go back to the school with the points that you've raised. But like I said, the school mentioned that the next day they called a school assembly with years 8, 9 and 10, that they've offered pastoral support to the young girl. They've spoken to her. She was off for a few days. So this is what the school confirmed to me. But I will take back what you've mentioned about... Okay. I'll take that back. Yeah.
I don't know what we'll say on behalf of the family is I know for a fact that what the school are telling our MP is not the experience of the family, right? So the school is not repeating the experience of the family, yeah? And if you can arrange a meeting with the family, you requested that, with the family and the school, because I would have liked the school to be here tonight, right? But they wouldn't come, right? So we have to do what we have to do. Colin, lots of questions there. And, I think that, look, there's what used to happen before George Floyd died, and there's what happens after George Floyd died. Oh, Kevin Clark, all right. Listen, lady, please. I know where she's from. She's from the revolutionary, Marxist, communist, yada, yada, yada. So, the asset test is all of the strategies that were in place to improve confidence, right, and reduce disproportionality that we had in place before George Floyd died, never worked. That's why we have a crisis. That's why you lost your commissioner. That's why the Mayor of London has got a race equality and a police accountability consultation, because he didn't think that the Metropolitan Police was responding to the demand for police accountability, fairness, lack of misogyny and racism and homophobia out there in the streets. So that's the situation. So if you're recounting the very things that failed prior to the death of George Floyd, in response to a new situation now, where the critical confidence is absolutely acute, then it's the same failure you're presenting them with today that you presented us with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 20 years ago. Either something has to materially differently change so we can get a different outcome, or otherwise, like insane people, we can't keep doing the same thing and getting the same outcome without any joy. Are you with me on that point? Are you going to respond as well to the invitation to apologize to this family? Because I was waiting for you to do it, and you didn't do it. So I'm going to invite you again to think about that in your answer. Thank you.
So I guess I just want to, there's a few questions I think because that were raised that I just want to just touch on first. So let's deal with that first. So we've heard today, and I explained tonight, that obviously more detail needs to be established when an investigation, because a complaint has been made. So we need to follow a due process, so we get all of that, meet with the families, representatives, and go through that process. And obviously that's something that I'm aware of and will make sure happens in the right way that it should. The issue's also been raised, and you've heard from local MP as well, who will actively take a keen interest and has written to me to make sure that happens. So I need to make sure, we need to follow through that, look at what has actually happened, look at the detail, speak to the families first is really, really important. What I said at the very beginning, though, was one of the things, reflecting on this incident is, I wish we'd had contact with the family much sooner. And, the next day we should have reached out and had that conversation, had that meeting to see what happened, and to discuss that dialogue, and then to be proactive about that. And there's something there that we need to think about and learn. And for that, I'm certainly sorry that we didn't do that. And we should have done. But we need to make sure that the complaints process continues. We heard from the lady, so apologies, I don't know your name, about the complaints process that you've talked about. Nearly a year. So it's an unacceptable length of time. My chief inspector at the back there, Niall O'Neill, will take that back, and we'll make sure we follow that up and give you an update tomorrow. If we can get your details, we'll come back to you, because I want to know what's happening with that. There is, in complaints processes generally, they take too long. They are a long process. And officers also feedback that they want them to happen much quicker as well. But it's a legal process. It takes time to go through those things. You have to do a thorough investigation. And what you should get when it's concluded is what we call an outcome report, which details all the circumstances, answers all the questions that you have and that you've raised, and then where the information is that has been drawn from a senior officer to explain to you. And then what you will then have, if you're not happy with it, for example, you can then appeal to the IOPC, who will then review it. So it's important for you to know that process, because when you raise a complaint and you have your voice, you need to know what the process is, and so you can get that justice. That procedural justice is really important.
You mentioned one point earlier on. No, I know you're going to pursue it, and you can grab him outside.
Yeah, we can speak afterwards. We can speak afterwards.
Yeah, we can pick it up later. Yeah, it's just that I'm conscious of the time, and we need to get out of the room. Yeah. Sorry, Mark. Sorry.
So I think the other point was raised just around body cam. I think someone asked if there is body cam. We supervise the use of body-worn video to make sure that in every stop and search encounter, and a number of other different encounters, for example, that officers use it. And we explore reasons why they don't use it. and making sure that they do. So it's about 97% of cases they use body-worn video. So when you hear that there hasn't been, we want to make sure, we want to find out why that is, and we'll check. And there's ways that we can check that as well. So it is important that we capture it. So I think the final bit really around the question that you posed around what's different, what can be new, how can we respond in a really different way, what's in a way what struck me. The gentleman said, "Was I genuine?" Yes, I absolutely am genuine. I want to bring more community involvement into things like police training, into scrutiny. I want to really listen to what those issues are, and I want my officers to hear that too, so that they think about how they police and how they are on the streets. The analogy you gave about local residents engaged in a school patrol. You've got a school watch with teachers. You've got street pastors. You've got other citizens involved in other forms of keeping our streets safe, working with the police. That's really important, and absolutely is what we should be doing. This is our community. I'm your servant, and it's my responsibility to listen and take that feedback and think about how we can police differently, and come back to you to say, well, this is what we've done, or this is what we're doing. What do you think? Can we change it? Can we amend it? Having those local links with neighbourhood policing. So again, we've heard about how policing has changed in those neighbourhood roles. We're having more officers put into neighbourhood roles over the next 6 months. So we'll increase that now, even with the new boundary changes in Lambeth. So we want to increase the number of officers we have in your local area so you get to know them. If you look out for the Lambeth summer camps, some of the Lambeth summer scheme activities that are coming up, there are ways in which the police are working with different organisations to do engagement, to offer opportunities for young people to come and do different things with different organisations and the police to break down some barriers. There's lots of things that are happening in that space. Work that we're doing with Lambeth Young Advisors in terms of different ways that young people are influencing decision making. There are lots of things that can all together, we're trying to take us in an improved direction, trying to meet, increase confidence, increase recruitment, retain more people, have our officers more culturally intelligent, more aware and responsive to what you're telling us. And I have heard you. Your voice has been strong, your questions have been searching, and you have my commitment to work incredibly hard with my senior team to take your feedback, work with different organisations, speak to Nathaniel, speak to Umar about how to engage in different structures on the borough to have your voice. It's incredibly important. We want to hear from you. Because ultimately, as our MP Florence said, around when things happen, we need to work together to solve the really serious, dangerous, difficult things that happen in our communities. Those tragedies, we want to end those, stop those, and we can only do that together. So thank you, and I'll hand back.
Thank you. Well, I've asked him. He's been asked twice for an apology. I asked him a third time, as you heard. Mr. Wingrove's obviously made a decision in relation to that. But I want to move on to ask the final 3 questions, and then I'm going to ask the panel here to sum up at the end before we bring the meeting to a close. But hold on just for 1 second before I do, because all of this is so much emotional heat and entertainment if I don't get sign up for volunteers for Lambeth School Patrol. Because the only way that we're going to make sure that we can avoid situations like this in the future is if we've got some sensible adults out there helping the kids go home and making sure that the police are acting proportionately in any intervention. Well, I'll give you a whole new meeting on the history of Lambeth School Patrol and the fight that we had from the police and statutory authorities against its introduction. So whilst people might say they're encouraging these things, it seems to me that that certain things are more acceptable than others. Let's just leave it at that at this stage. But we had a real fight. But we're here now, and we've done it independently, despite all the challenges. We patrol Central Brixton. Rebecca here is one of our patrol officers. We only need to get 6 or 7 volunteers to be outside Stockwell, and we can establish one in Stockwell. And we want to establish one in Vauxhall and Kennington and all the major interchanges, because violence happens and goes up and crime goes up between 3:30 and 6 every day. And they respond to you more than they respond to the police officers. So I'm hoping, can I just see a raise of hand of people who would like to volunteer? Just raise your hand for me. I've only got 1 so far. I got 2, I got 3, I got 4, I got 5, let's give a round of applause. Now, who's got the sign-up sheet? Sorry. I ain't got time. I got time. I don't, yeah. We can do questions. We can do 3 more. I said 3 more. Yeah. You will, for those of you who want to, for those of you who want to volunteer, Aaliyah here, wave your hand, Aaliyah. Give your details to Aaliyah, and then you'll immediately be put into the training package that gets you trained up to be able to do these things. And although the police did help us on the first occasion, they didn't help us train on the second occasion. If they want to come back on the third occasion, we'd happily receive your input into that training. So I'm going to take the 3 questions and then summations from the panel. This young lady here, bear with us, we're nearly at the end. Yes?
Okay, so I just want to first...
So you've got to stand up. Hold on, I can't hear her because there's too much noise in the room.
Shh. No, Hoy, I'm going to say something. Hoyo.
Go.
So I just, with all disrespect, I want to say that I'm not satisfied by any statement that Colin has made today. And I think it's pathetic of you to come to a meeting and not be prepared. Sorry.
The sister's saying, with respect, she's not impressed with any of the answers she's heard from the officer. Carry on.
And it's embarrassing of you to come to a meeting that you're not prepared for. You haven't stated anything significant. And instead, and the key word to this meeting is accountability, but you have yet to even suggest that you even stand with us when it comes to our stance with what has happened today. And you merely stated that the people are accountable for their own actions, but as a superior, you're accountable for the incompetent officers' actions that happened. And moving forward, if we're going to work together and you're going to represent us and we're going to cooperate with you, you have to be clear and precise on where you stand and what your opinion is on, I don't know his name, but the police officer. Yes, but we need to know where you stand. And PC Bamba, I want you to clearly, and don't deflect like you've been doing all day, clearly tell me that you think he should be held accountable for what his actions were towards my sister. That is what I want.
Hi, thank you so much. So I work with young people, and before we do anything with young people, we do safeguarding training, and we take it very, and if something like that were to come up, and I heard that a member of my team manhandled a child, they would not just be put on timeout, like there would be some serious consequences. So what I would like to hear from you, Superintendent, is what are the consequences that this officer is going to see, and what can we expect to see from your district in terms of schooling, and policing? Because, for me, I want kids to go to school and be safe and have a safe learning environment. But if we know there are people that are going to assault them in schools, that's a very serious safeguarding issue. So please, can you please address that and tell us exactly what you are going to do in this instance? And thank you.
Thank you. And one more. One more. Lady at the back. Sorry, you missed out. Just.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Speak loud.
I'll do my best. Good evening, everyone. I'm from West London, and we do have, we call safer officer in our schools, and they are like teachers, if I be honest with you. They work with the students. Our students are comfortable to talk to them if they have any issues. There are times the safe officers help our students. But what I'm hearing tonight is disgusting, is unacceptable. Officer, if you have seen what has happened, That officer should not be working in a school. Our children are not safe around him. You should suspend while you're investigating. That person, I wouldn't feel safe to send my daughter to that school. It's embarrassing that nobody came from the school to show solidarity. That child, and you should take account to what the school is doing. You should talk to the school as well and find out what plans do they have to support our kids if they care, or officer, if you care.
Okay.
Or if you care. It's good that you came to face us. Thank you for that. But we want to know, what do you have? What happens next? What happens next? That child is traumatized.
That's right.
At the same time, she has to do her GCSEs. That incident could have destroyed her life.
That's it.
And that man, that officer, is working. He is getting my money. I am a taxpayer. He is getting the parents' taxpayer.
Okay, I'm going to wind you up.
And he is working. We basically paying him to destroy our kids.
West London.
So, officer, we can see the feeling is mutual. We're angry, but we want some actions. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Now, there's two things that are absolutely true in life. Nothing is binary. Nothing is black and white. There are always shades of grey, right? Some of these officers are bad. Some of them are angels and brilliant. We know that. We know that. Not all of them. But the police have got a problem around accountability, racism and homophobia, and they need to tackle it quickly. And if they work with communities, we can help you in that regard. But if we're being ignored, then we can't help you. And I think that the thing is going forward is that the Met are very selective of who they want to talk to and who they don't want to talk to. The voices that won't talk like mine, right? They're in the room, and the people like me and the people like most of you here tend not to be in the room. And so I think that, what we need to do is broaden that accountability. They're doing great work in these groups, but they needed to be added to. There's the guy there with the stop and search group. I would hope like 15 of you would join the stop and search group tonight. The school patrol. I would hope, 10 of you would join the school patrol. This centre, I would hope you would say, actually, we should make more use of this centre and book and start to have events in this centre holding the police to account. We can't demand justice. You have to fight for it. You have to organize it. You have to plan for it. You have to move for it. And if you do all of those things, then you will get justice. But if you expect it to fall out the sky because a benevolent man in power says, I'm going to give you your freedom, it's never, ever going to happen. So what I would say is, as much as we ask the police for accountability, we have to ask ourselves for accountability, because we know we've got our own internal issues that we need to deal with, and the school patrol is one way in which allows us to do that. Another way is to make sure that he is put under extreme scrutiny to hold these officers to account. Are you with me on those 2 points? Right. Because some will leave the meeting saying this is an anti-police meeting, right? You know the script that's going to be written, that we attacked the police officer, that we were unfair, that he was biased, that he was prejudiced. But the reality is, we're following the objective evidence of 20 years of policing experience. Your officer on that day wasn't following his objective experience in police training, which says 16-year-old hijab-wearing schoolgirls are unlikely to be committing burglary at 3:30 in the afternoon outside the very school that they go to. Are you with me on that point? Right. So it's not as though we're making a dramatic, big political point. We're making a human rights point that nobody here believes the credibility of the intelligence that led to that stop and search. Am I right on that? Can I see a vote of hands? Does anybody here believe that that girl, the officer thought that girl was committing burglary? Does anybody here believe that? Right, so there's complete incredulity about the explanation which you need to come to. Now we're going to wind up because I've said tonight, and you were airflow, everybody's got to take a little bit of medicine. The community needs to take some medicine. The council needs to take some medicine. We need to take some medicine. They need to take some medicine. Are you with me? Because that's how grown-up people deal with their stuff, right? It's not all one way or the other. We're all infallible. We've all got responsibility. So tonight, we want you to step up and be proper citizens. If you want your kids to be safe, then the primary responsibility for that doesn't lie with teachers, doesn't lie with police officers, it lies with you and me. Are you with me on that point? Right, so hopefully we're going to get good sign-up. So I'm going to go through the platform. Now, before we wind up, so do you want to go now, or should I take the officer? Age demands that you're allowed to say something, yes. Sorry, we can't hear you. Can somebody give her the mic? No. This is so you'll be recorded, my dear. It's not that for the volume. In fact, come and get my mic. Oh, my days. What are you coming in with them big eyes for now? Right, Mum, go ahead.
Yes, I sat and I thought, I won't say anything. And then I thought, but why? I arrived in this country here 1971, straight to the hospital, to be told day after day, you black bastard, why don't you go back home? When you finish, take stinky bedpan from them. And after general, I went to psychiatry and realized the people, they seem to be better in their behavior, but them is worse. Maybe because they dope them up and they're docile, so they can't say anything. Because I could tell you where I see log-actil done to them. Then I came out and went to nursery nursing. I trained as NNEB after nursing, quite like to be with the children. And you have parents who will come and want to lick down everywhere and everybody. And it was very few of us in that setting, but many of our children. Because when I asked Merton to come to Merton, because that's where the hospital was, they say, oh, they didn't tell me whether when I passed the test, whether it was not good or good for them to take me. Why didn't I try Lambeth or Croydon? So it just told me something. More black people in Croydon and Lambeth. So you black, you go there. I didn't have to ask them why. I just worked it out. And as I go along, I can see all what was happening. I had my daughter while I was in day nurseries in 77. And I could see the problem with housing. Where they put me, I have to take the pram apart and go up them long stairs and go enough to kill me before.
Mum, I'm going to have to draw you in, you know. We could
you.
listen to you all night, Mummy.
So
give her a round of applause.
51.
Mummy, I'm going to have to move on because that clock is, I got to be out by 9.
Diligently, never fail.
Good.
And I lived through Scarman, 81 riot, this, that, and the other. And I did my homeschooling myself because I didn't like what I saw.
Mom, I'm going to have to draw you in.
So you are telling us do it.
Self-help.
Why pay taxes?
Okay, self-help is the way. Give her a round of applause again, please. Okay. That's it from the floor. Thank you very much for all the questions. I'm going to take Lester for some final words.
Thank you, Lee. Listen, if I was the Chief Super, what I would be saying is, I'm sorry the incident happened. I'm sorry that the girl is traumatized. I'm sorry that everyone is upset. I'm sorry for the disproportionality in stop and search in Lambeth. I'm sorry that we have the worst outcomes when it comes to race. I recognize that there's institutional racism in the force, in my force. I recognize that I pledge to do something about it, and none of that actually prejudges the investigation. I just don't think it's that hard. I really don't. So, anyway, that's all I'm saying about the apology. But what I would say is that, I've been a journalist for a little while, and I've covered a number of death in custody cases, including Sean Rigg in Lambeth, including Derek Bennett in Lambeth, and a number of other cases. And for me, the difference between the death in custody and the bruised wrist is really whether the person is standing up or is on the floor. There's a very thin line between, having a rough arrest and being in a far worse situation. And I think that's why a lot of people are concerned. I just wanted to say that, please join the Lambeth School Patrol. But I think what's really important as well is that we organise to have proper and far-reaching police reform. And I think that's not just about being in forums with the police and telling them what they need to do, which I think is really important, but I think it's also important that we actually be away from the police as well, working out what kind of police reform we want to see and building support in the community for that. Because otherwise, what we are always trying to do is tinker with the system, try to amend things here and amend things there, but sometimes we actually need to talk about fundamental reform and believe that these things can be possible. So I think that's really important. The other thing as well, which I would like the Chief Superintendent to pledge, is to say that we've got a policing bill or policing act now that's just come in, which reintroduces the sus laws in the sense that there is no longer the onus on having reasonable suspicion in order to stop people. Just because the police have that power doesn't mean they have to use it. I think that what the senior police officers can do is actually say, yeah, we've got this power, but we're not going to use it. We're going to stick with community intelligence. We're going to work hard with the community so that we earn that trust in order to get that community intelligence. And we are not going to go back to the days of the sus laws, which led to uprisings in Brixton twice. And 3 times if you count 2011 with the outcome of Mark Duggan. So I think that I would like to see more organising everywhere about what kind of police we need, but also some real commitments from the police about how they're going to take this forward. And I think it's got to be more than we're doing an investigation. We're keeping all options open because I think we can do better than that.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to take Councillor Hashi, then I'm going to go to our MP, and then I'm going to have the Commander give the final word. I shall give some surrounding comments, and then we're done. Go ahead.
I'm going to be really quick, because I know it's prayer time. I'm just going to go back to the groups that I said. It's very important that we're represented at the seats that make decisions around policy. We've got a lot of... So we had elections. How many of you guys voted last week? Fantastic. That's really good. So we've got a lot of councillors in the room right now, actually. Who are your representatives? Can I get the councillors to stand up, please? Can I get the councillors to stand up? David, can we get you to stand up? Councillors. Councillors. Now, already, a few of these councillors don't even represent the area. But you can tell who cares. And it's very important you use their amplified voices to cover what you need done. We've also, as I said, we've got Nathaniel here, we've got Omar here, we've got people that are representing different boards. But if you leave them alone to sit on those boards together, this is all you're going to ever do. Come to meetings, get angry, and then go home, hot and sweaty. That's it. Again, for me, I've been a councillor 4 years. I got re-elected by the grace of God, and I'm still here. And I'm not here because of me. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. First thing I done when stop and search was the issue for me was join every single board in Lambeth. I was on 9 boards. I was the vice chair of 5 of them and the chair of 1 of them. Why? Because I was scared. I didn't understand the system. I didn't understand the processes. I didn't understand how things worked. I sat on boards through 6 borough commanders in Lambeth. I've maintained when they haven't. That's how we are as communities. We've maintained when they haven't. We live here, which gives us a bigger responsibility. It's as Kwaku was saying, we have to police ourselves. It's not all right for our kids to be doing a madness and we're just talking about police. I'm not saying that's the issue here. Let me be clear. But we see our kids doing badness and we turn the other cheek. They're not, I'm glad that's not my kid. We've seen videos of our small kids pulling out knives longer than the whole of their size. Did we have a meeting and get mad then? Did we phone out their parents and get mad? No, because that weren't our kid. Alhamdulillah, today we're here for a good kid that went through an experience she shouldn't have gone through. We're here to support her through that, and inshallah she gets outstanding GCSEs. But for me, it's really, really important that we are present at those places where decisions are being made. As I said, you've got local councillors here, you've got board members and chairs here, you've got the school patrols here. Guys, we have to be involved. As I said, Umar's the chair of the independent advisory group to the police, who hold them to account. Nathaniel's the chair, and we've got the vice chair here, Ricky. He's the chair of the Stop and Search Monitoring Group, where you look at the stats and you dig into them, ask difficult questions. If you guys are not willing to sit on these groups, then see you at the next meeting. That's where I'm going to leave it because of the prayer time. No, I'm just being a bit harsh because I've been through this a long time. Listen, sis, I get that. I was at uni doing 4 jobs 7 days a week and I still attended. Because, I understand, but it's the effort. Even if 10 people from this entire group go, we know our voice is represented. That's all it is. It's about the effort. Thank you, that's it.
Can we just say, because these issues are not counterposed. I know people like to counterpose them. Well, we've got to have this, rough house stop and search because there's violence in your community. Oh, well, the police are all racists. I'm not interested in the violence. I just want to deal with racism. We have got to walk and chew gum at the same time. Do you understand what I mean? We can deal with the violence in our own community and we can deal with police officers who are behaving badly. We can do both at the same time. That is not impossible. For intelligent people, it's actually what you require. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear that I castigate the officers. But like Hashi and others, I also castigate my own community when we're not stepping up to save our own children. Who do you expect is going to do this job? The police, the teachers, the school? Your mosque, your temple, your church. If we don't take responsibility as parents to keep all our children safe, then they won't be safe, will they? And inshallah, that's what will happen. But we're going to go on to Flo. Then I'm going to take Mr. Wingrove, and then we're going to wind up for the night. Flo.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, as the sister here said, it is voluntarily, and all of you here voluntarily tonight. Some of you should have been putting your kids to bed, like me. Some of you should have been getting dinner ready and preparing for tomorrow. Some of you I might see on a mad school run tomorrow as well, as I'm rushing. But we do it because this is our community. This could happen to any of our children, nieces, nephews, sons, daughters, grandchildren. We have to take more accountability for our community. I think sometimes it's easy to lay the blame, but I think we do need to look at the clear facts. Again, there are many different video clippings. I think it's really important we let the police do their investigation and the police need to come back to us. And Colin's committed to that this evening. And I'll be doing my job to make sure he does come back. And once I get those replies back, I'll feed that to the family and to the school. My office and myself and I have been working with the family. We'll continue to do that because, again, my primary concern is that young girl. And I'm not saying that to be selfish, but that's my concern in terms of her mental well-being going forward and support for the family. I think it's also really important that we acknowledge the fact that done correctly, stop and search can work. But until I see the police stop and searching, some of my MPs like MPs, But we need to be honest in terms of some of the people who have been stopped and searched. Do they need to be stopped and searched? Can it be a conversation? Can we look at different ways? Intelligence-led stop and search could have results, but sometimes these stop and searches don't amount to anything. And it's the feeling that it leaves those children afterwards. Like I said, for many of these children, that's their first contact with the police, and it's already a negative contact. So I think going forward, we need to look and continue to train our children about their rights. They're clear about their rights. There's an event later on at the end of this month at the Black Prince Trust, at 30th of May. If you've got young brothers, sisters, get them to attend. tell them to all be active and come along. I think equally it's important for us to acknowledge that the borough commander is here and he has listened, and I hope that, you know, he will take back all those points. Again, like I said, I'll be making sure I feed back and press him on those and on the issues with the school. But it's really, really important as a community we continue to work together on this really important issue. Thank you all for coming this evening.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna final words from Chief Superintendent Wingrove. Remember, Aaliyah, stand up. Anybody who's volunteering, please give your names here before you leave. But we'll. Yeah, no. Hold on. Can I don't. All right. Next. Yeah, all right. We're not parading what we're doing. Everybody's got a list. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Sign up.
So I think firstly I would just to thank you for inviting me. You know, police accountability is really important. That's why I'm here, fielding the questions, listening, and thinking about ways, you know, in terms of how we can respond. And of course, you know, this incident has, you know, left a young girl and her family traumatised and lacking in confidence in policing. And of course, that we wouldn't want that to happen. You know, no one would. None of us go into policing and come into work every day wanting to do that. And of course, the investigation will continue, work really closely with the family, and we'll come back in the future. I think the other issue and the other encouraging actually thing is this call for community participation, being active citizens. It is really important, and we can all work together. You know, because we all want the same things: safer communities, children to go to school safely, excel at school and do the very best, you know, deal with all the terrible things that sometimes blight our communities. We want to deal with all of those things, and they do all interlink. So, you know, as everyone has spoken about signing up, you know, sign up and get involved. It is really important. It's really important as an institution we are held to account. So sign up for the community monitoring groups and come to the event on the 30th. And again, having people other than police officers patrolling, you know, eyes and ears, working side by side. Our 10 centre team officers are linked in with school patrol in town centre. So, you know, we'll build on that as well. So, like I say, you know, that is my commitment. I want to build trust and confidence. I want to keep you safe. I will listen, and I've heard you. I've absolutely heard you and the things that you have said, and take back into the organisation and be held, you know, by those who are here representing on your behalf and others that may join up and sign as well. So thank you for the opportunity. You know, keep safe and join up to the different schemes and volunteer and participate in keeping communities safe alongside us too. Thank you.
Can we just be clear? Because we opened this meeting saying we wanted a review on how the process of arresting juveniles in the borough takes place, and we'd like that review as a discussion between you and the community to come up with a set of reassurance guidelines that can operate going forward in the future to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Are you committing in front of this audience to engage with us and the family in relation to producing those new guidelines? No, well, hold on. The guidelines, we're talking about guidelines, not legislation. Now, I negotiated for the last 40 years with individual superintendents, right, bespoke community reassurance schemes. This is a scheme we've had in Lambeth before. Not on the Nick F. Grave, before Nick F. Grave. Nick F. Grave was a new boy. So what I'm saying is, all we're inviting is a discussion. Now, if we're saying that the policy for arrest of our juveniles is not up for discussion, all right, let's be clear, that's what we're saying. I didn't hear him say that. I heard him say, yes, I'm up for that discussion. Well, Sadiq can do it London-wide. At the moment, we're just looking at Lambeth and Lambeth. So are you happy to engage in discussions in review in relation to those matters?
Yes, so clearly I'm here because I want to listen to feedback. I want to hear from what people have to say. We want to make sure that we're policing by consent and policing on behalf of communities. So incredibly important to sit down and discuss how we do things and how communities are involved in shaping policing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I will need those people who wish to be part of that discussion. If you could put your name with Aaliyah here, then whenever it is that discussion happens with. Now look, we've been here late. You've been fantastic. I've been absolutely terrible. Give everybody a round of applause. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Peace.